Hey guys, it's Rogowy here and it's time for another tutorial, and today we are looking at altering expressions and changing the mood of a photo. In this case we're going to create a more dramatic looking effect from a very normal looking photo, and so let's get started. The photo that we have to work with is this photo here of a very innocent looking husky. And we're going to make it look much more threatening and more dramatic, almost like a wolf. We'll see how it turns out. And there's a couple tools that we're going to use to create this effect. Before I get started, I just want to mention that I take no credit for the photos themselves. These are ones that I've found, and it's strictly for educational purposes only. So let's get started. Now open up the image in Photoshop. You'll notice that it's an NEF file, which is the Nikon RAW format, and it'll open up with Camera Raw. And what we want to do is just tweak the settings a little bit so that the color looks really good. We're going to make sure we have no blowout in the fur, so I'm just quickly going to set my white balance. I'm going to tweak my exposure a bit and just tweak each of the settings so that it becomes as good of a starting image as possible. And in this case, what we're trying to do is bring out as much detail in the fur and in the dog as possible, so I'm going to really crank that clarity slider to do that. All right. Now we're going to kind of create a cinematic effect on this image, and we're going to hit Open Image, and now we have got our starting image of the dog to work with. Now, this dog doesn't look very threatening. He doesn't look very wild. He has this harness on him. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to take out the harness. We're going to take out the clip, we're going to take out the strings, and the harness itself. So let's zoom in on this one to start because it's probably the easiest one. And for this, we're going to use Clone Stamp. And so there's your Clone Stamp tool there. And we're going to go with a brush that is, I don't know. Let's see, for hardness, just one sec here. Hardness should be at around, let's start at about 50%. Let's see how it goes. All right, and I'm just going to increase my brush size a little bit, and we're going to sample the snow down here by holding Option and clicking, and we're just going to cover up that clip like so. As we get closer, as we get closer to the fur itself, I'm going to go to a softer brush, probably about 25%. And I'm going to just sample the edges of the hair here and just cover up the rest of that clip, whatever's left showing. Again, just try to get it as best as you can. If it's not perfect, don't worry. It's for the sake of the tutorial anyways, just to show you how we can really change a photo. All right, so there's the clip is gone. It's disappeared now, and now we're going to work on these two strings that are coming off. And these are pretty easy. We're going to zoom in on these. And in order to get this correctly, you can see that there's some legs to the dog in the background behind. I'm just going to take my Clone Stamp. I'm going to set my crosshair right on the edge between the light and dark area. And I'm going to line that up down here like so. And then I'm going to just paint out that rope nicely, starting with the top rope. Now you can see there's a difference in color, so maybe I'm going to go closer. I'm going to go closer to where the actual rope needs to be taken out, so maybe down here instead. And obviously it's trial and error. Just tweak it to get it as close as you can. All right, get that there. Just like so. This area. You can see that I'm constantly resampling. If you want it to be really natural, if you want it to look good, it's good to keep resampling to areas that are closer to what you're trying to get rid of. And again, I'm not too worried about it looking perfect, because some of the effects we're going to do, this picture is going to eliminate it anyways. For this one, I'm going to go below. For the lower rope, I'm going to sample from below, like so. Oops, that's not too good. Bring back some of that there. Like I said, it's not going to matter too much, but we do want it to look somewhat decent. I'm going to go with a bigger brush, do a larger area, and this shouldn't take too long. Now, obviously, I'm not spending too much time making it perfect, but just getting it out as much as possible. I'm going to now lower my hardness down all the way so that these areas where there's a real noticeable difference, I'm just going to click a few times so it looks like it's meant to be like that. So if I go Command 0, there you go, it's gone. It's kind of noticeable, but it's okay for what it is. Next, this rope down here, and what we're going to do for this, I'm going to zoom in, and we're actually going to sample the hair up here and bring it down into there. And so just make sure your hardness is set to 0, which it is, and make a fairly large brush. And we're just going to kind of overlap the hair. Whoops, that's bad. The hair where it should be covering up. And once again, it may not look perfect, but you know, if we had more time to spend on this, then we would try to make it look a lot better, obviously. This is as good as it's going to get for the tutorial. All right, almost there. There we go. Okay, so that was quick and easy. We got the ropes out, and now we got the dog looking more like a free animal rather than one with ropes hanging off of him. Next thing we're going to do is we're going to bring out some of those shadow areas a little more to add more contrast to our image to make it a little more punchy. So we're going to go to Image Adjustments, we're going to go to Exposure. And within the exposure window, we're just going to tweak the exposure down a little bit, bring the offset down a bit so you can see that that's really making those shadow areas nice and dark. Then we're just going to tweak our gamma a little bit just to change the balance of the light within that shot. So if I go back here, I could just use a shortcut, but I'm going to use history instead. You can see it just makes it a little more punchy. Now, we want to change the expression of the dog itself. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take my marquee, rectangular marquee tool, and I'm going to make a selection around the dog's, around the dog's face, the entire face like this. All right, and we're going to go to Filter, Liquify. Now, if you haven't used liquify before, liquify is great for changing expressions and just, you know, making your models lose weight, and there's so many uses for liquify. I'm not going to go into all the settings, but what we're going to do here is we're going to choose the forward warp tool, and we're going to just turn on advanced mode here so we got a little bit more options. And one thing you want to do is change your brush size. Okay, and so you can do that just by clicking the name brush size and then sliding your mouse. So we want to go with a brush size about that big, about 225 in this case. And we want to make the dog look a little bit more menacing. Just a little bit about this, so you can change your brush size, you can change how dense your brush is, how much strength it has, and how much pressure, how much it moves. With the forward warp tool, what it does is whatever you click on, it allows you to move it around, which looks really weird. Obviously, we don't want to do that. What we're going to do is we're going to pull down the brow of this dog to make him look meaner. So I'm going to click somewhere about here. And I'm going to pull that down to give his eyes more of a slanted look. And we're going to do the same thing over here to make a meaner looking dog. Or in this case, maybe it's starting to look like a wolf, which is kind of more what we're going for. Like that. Now, the nice thing about brows is you can really move them a lot and it's still going to look somewhat natural. We're going to hit OK. So you can see that very quickly we went from a very innocent to a more menacing looking dog. I'm going to press Command D to deselect. And now we have, like I said, a much more meaner looking dog. Now if we zoom in on this picture, again, we want to bring out as much detail in the fur as possible. So we're going to go to Filter, Sharpen, Unsharp Mask. And we're going to tweak this to bring out as much detail as possible. So we're going to bring up the amount, and we're going to bring up the radius until it looks like we got more detail in that hair. You can check this preview window. Be careful you don't go too much. And we're going to hit OK once we're happy with that. All right, that should bring out all the little details in the hair. And that's starting to look good. Next, what we want to do is we want to give this picture a different feel. We want to give it a mood change, because right now it just looks too normal. It's got, you know, the white balance is set and the color is very natural looking. We want to change that. So we're going to go to Image, Adjustments. We're going to go Color Balance. And we're going to move our sliders for midtones, highlights, and shadows more towards cyan and more towards blue. And let's just see what happens. So we're going to start with midtones. We're going to pull that over. We're going to pull this one towards blue. We're going to do the same with highlights. Pull it over. Pull this more towards blue. Do the same with shadows. Pull it over and pull it more towards blue. And as you can see, what's happening is we're really dramatically changing the mood of our photograph from very natural looking to a very cold and more menacing, almost cinematic look to our photo. Click OK once you're done with that. Then we're going to go Image Adjustments. We're going to go Brightness and Contrast, and we're going to tweak our brightness. We're going to bring that up just so it's not so dark. And we're going to bring up our contrast a bit so those black areas really stand out. All right, we don't want to blow out any of the hair here. We're going to hit OK, and we're getting close. Now what we're going to do is we're going to bring out the eyes a little more. So we're going to zoom in on the eyes, and we're going to use the Dodge tool. So there's the Dodge tool there, looks like a lollipop. And make sure it's set to midtones and an exposure of 50%. And the way the Dodge tool works, you got to paint over the area a few times. So in this case, we're going to bring out the lower part of the eye. So I'm just going to paint over that a few times. And you'll see that it's lightening it up. It doesn't do a huge amount. It just does a little bit at a time. And when you press Command 0 now, you can see what it's done, the before and after. It's added a little more punch to those eyes. Now we could go more. I'm not going to, but we could go more. Maybe just a touch. All right, and there we go. Now he's starting to look really, really good. Next what we're going to do is we're going to make it look a little more cinematic by adding the widescreen bars to the top and bottom. Actually, before we do that, we're just going to add a lens blur that'll soften and increase the make the depth of field shallower. So we're going to go Filter, we're going to go Blur, we're going to go Lens Blur. And with the lens, the amount of blur that we have. So we're going to bring the radius down, and you notice as we increase it, the blur becomes more and more noticeable. We're going to bring it down in this case. Okay, we're just going to tweak. We can tweak, well, almost anything here. We're going to leave it with the default settings there. And so really all we're going to change in this case is the amount. This just adds a very slight effect to it, and we're going to hit OK. All right, and so if you see before and after, we've just made our wolf now a little bit blurry. You know what? Yeah, that's okay. I'm going to actually undo it because I like it with more detail personally. Sometimes that looks good. Sometimes the lens blur will add a nice effect. Next, we're going to add a new layer. I'm going to take the rectangular selection tool, rectangular marquee tool. We're going to set our colors to default by clicking this little tab here, and our foreground color should go to black. We're going to draw a selection about this big or so, and we're going to go edit fill, and we're going to set the fill to black. Then a real quick and easy trick to make another one for the bottom is to go to your move tool, hold the option key, and just drag a copy down to the bottom. You'll now have two bars that are exactly the same height, and as you can see, you end up with a more cinematic look by adding that black bar to the top and bottom. All right, if I wanted to get really picky, I could go in, I could tweak, like I go into adjustments and go in my selective color, and I could tweak my cyans if I really wanted to, just to get a more, oh, I'm on the wrong layer, get a more dramatic effect. All right, if I wanted to do a little bit of that, you can see that I can really change how blue it actually is. Change the color that blue is as well. You know, you can tweak that however you want. All right, you see what the difference it made there, just a little bit less blue. Another thing you can do is go to image adjustments and do a photo filter, and you can go to a cooling filter, and that'll do some kind of, in this case, it'll add a nice effect maybe to this image. Can change the density of that, how strong or how soft it is. Again, each of these things are going to make it a little bit more dramatic looking. All right, so whether you decide to add them or not, it's up to you. Okay, so there we go. That is the end result. All right, and if I go back to my original happy dog, innocent dog, to what I finished up at, you can see that it's a huge difference. It's pretty major. Now you can do this with models that maybe don't smile for you, or if you really want to change the overall mood of a feel of a photo, pretty quick and easy to do. I suggest everybody takes some time to tweak their image, and if you can enhance it, I say go for it. So save this. I'm going to call it Wolf. Whoops, it'd be good if I could spell. Wolf. I'm going to save it as a Photoshop document, so I got my layers, and save, and hit OK, and all good. All right, hopefully you got through that okay. Hope to see you use some of these effects maybe in your own photos. Till next time, take care.